You know what's annoying? This friggin' thing. But it doesn't have to be that way. I'm gonna teach you an easy memory trick that'll help you absolutely crush this game. And with a bit of practice, actually beat the whole damn thing.
Oh, 12! Magnificent!
For those of you that live under a rock, the game Simon's very simple. It presents you a sequence of colors and you just have to repeat them back. They get increasingly hard by one more color every round until you can't remember the sequence and you mess up. The point of the game is to get as far as you possibly can.
Okay.
Most people that ever try this probably can't get very far, maybe 7, maybe 10. You get an easy sequence. But past that, it's pretty hard for the average person. You watcher of my channel, you're not the average person. Anyways, let's dive in and get started. It's really simple. There are 4 colors, red, green, blue, and yellow. Now, when you try to do it by rote repetition, you're just trying to remember a pattern. And that works up to a point. And if you have a forgiving sequence, something that's easy to remember, maybe a lot of repeats, maybe a pattern that makes sense to you, it might be an easier one to memorize a longer sequence of. But it's not reliable, and we need a system. Memory techniques are all about coming up with a system that help you chunk information into smaller bites. What I mean by that, instead of trying to remember the colors in order, why don't we come up with pictures that represent groups of sequences of colors? And remember that instead. I'll show you what I mean. All right, so the trick is this. So let's just give all of these colors a simple sound or letter to associate with it. So green will be G, red will be R, blue will be B, and yellow will be L because of the double L. All right, so what do you do with those letters? Well, every time there's a new color in the sequence, you translate it to a letter, and then when there are 2, you create a word. Now, all of those letters that I chose for you are all consonants, so what you can do is put vowels in and around to make an actual word. So let's say I got R and G, those were the first 2 of my sequence, then I'm just gonna think of the word rag or rig, either one. And you picture the thing. So picture a rag or picture a rig. Then the next 2 colors will come and you create another word. And what you'll do is, usually you can actually get pretty far with just kind of remembering the word since it repeats every round, so you get a review every single round before you add one more. But what you can do is connect all of those weird words, those 1-syllable long words, and make a story out of it. Let's do an example.
All right, let's slow it down. This will be chill. Just kind of going through an example here where we're looking at what this randomly shows us and how I would convert it to letters, then to words, and then images in my mind. So green starts it off. That says to Simon, let's go. And it'll start to show me the first color in the sequence. And we have green. So in my mind, I'm holding the letter G, the G sound. So now it repeats the sequence of green and shows a red. So now I have an R added to my sequence, a G and an R. Now it's at this point, because I'm doing pairs, I create a word with G and R as consonants, and I can fill in with vowels wherever I want. So first thing that comes to mind is a gear. Okay, so in my mind, I'm just actually picturing a gear. Okay, so now we keep going. So now we have green, red, red, right? So I have the first 2 covered, gear, and now I have another R. Okay, I can't do much with that until I get the next letter in the sequence. So now I add this blue. So I have gear, then that R, and now a new letter B. So R and B, I need to come up with something. Yeah, you could think of R and B actually. Or you could think of like rub or robe or ruby even. But let's go with robe. Now my sequence is gear and robe. And what I'll do is I'm gonna make a story. So I first start with the picture of a gear. It's chugging along, rotating, churning, whatever. And it puts on a velvet robe. Really sexy, sensual velvet robe. And that's my story so far. Okay, so now we have another letter to our sequence. We have gear, robe, and another R. Okay, I'm gonna recite that and then wait for the next letter. Here we go. And it goes back to the blue. So I have gear, robe, and then actually another RB. So I can think of another robe. Maybe there's 2 robes involved. Or I could switch it up. I could do rub, right? So maybe this gear puts on a robe and starts to give a very sensual rub down to other gears. I don't know. Let's do one more pair. Okay, so back to a G. Okay, so the last pair in the sequence is G and a G. So, we could play on this theme here of kind of getting sensual here, but maybe there's a gag involved. All right, so what's our sequence? We have gear, we have robe, we have rub, we have gag. right? And now just that weird image, you may even think like, oh, okay, that's a lot of words, Nelson. How am I going to remember more? But it's not about the words. It's about the story and the pictures. Forget about the words. If you can think of the pictures and the story and make it vivid enough, then you're going to remember it. So I have a gear, wearing the robe, doing a sensual rub, and applying a gag to another gear or something like that. And suddenly there, you've memorized 8 letters in order. And all you got to do, right, when you're converting this back to the buttons here is just say, hey, what consonants do I hear in these images? So gear, I hear G, R, so green, red, robe, red, blue, rub, red, blue, gag, green, green. There you have it.
Now, one thing I gotta address, because I know there are people out there saying like, Nelson, listen, I played this game with no techniques and I got to level X or Y, and all I did was just remember it and remember the pattern and the music and whatever. Sure, there are definitely going to be sequences that are easier to memorize just by luck of the draw. But what this system does is for any given sequence, no matter how long, you can always apply this system and get a really good result. It's reliable every single time, not just when you have a good sequence that's easy. And that's what we're after. We're after a system that can always be reliable.
Oh, one more thing. If you have a number system, you can actually, instead of making these letters, you can make each one of these 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you're just memorizing a sequence of numbers. That for me is actually the easiest way because memorizing numbers is easy. But if you don't have the number system set up, then the letter system is probably the way to go. So that's it. That is honestly it. You can have fun with that. You can go as far as you want. The more you practice, the easier it'll get. Some of these Simon games, they fire the sequence at you pretty quick. But if you find other versions of it, sometimes it's a little slower, a little more forgiving, and you can practice it a little slower. What you can do to even enhance it even further is place those images in a memory palace. I have tons of videos. I'll link here somewhere. You can use a memory palace. I've talked about it in tons of other videos, and it's a great way to store a lot of information. I don't know what these max out to. I'm probably gonna try and see what the highest score you can get is. I believe it's probably like 99, I would assume, but who knows? Let's see how far I can get. So that's it. If you're ever at a dinner party and somebody busts out one of these, you can say, excuse me, pass it over here, and you can spend the next 15 to 30 minutes just racking up insane points and looking like a fucking genius. You're welcome.